works.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
I'm Chris.
And this is a Knit Sheep Knit and Crochet Podcast, episode 23. Woohoo! Well, we are having another dreary spring day.
Yeah.
So I'm having a nice cup of Earl Grey tea. I am very committed to my Earl Grey, and it's committed to me.
That's not weird.
No. How are you doing today?
Okay.
Good. You want to start, or shall I? I had a little bit of an adventure last night.
Yeah, she tried to stay up past her bedtime.
You know what?
Knitting.
The end of my shawl was in sight. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I can just knock this out tonight.
Oh,
so
sweetie.
Let me show you how far I got, though.
You didn't notice the horns on the person telling you that?
No, I didn't. I think he retracted them. So now I'm down to this width right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one more repeat of my 16 repeats to go.
Okay.
But you see what happened was this.
So you started doing the cell in the off-white yarn.
No, that's a section of my contrast color. The color burst is white.
Oh, okay.
But now I'm seeing such a wide white stripe because the cells are, I have so many fewer cells.
Things went really bad.
Oh gosh. So I'm knitting and knitting. I watched the movie. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna knit and throw on a movie. So I rewatched the Book of Eli, which was a lot of fun. Noticed some things I never noticed before, but wow. Mila Kunis was in that eons ago.
Okay, focus.
Anyway, I was like, is that Mila Kunis? It sure was. I watched the Book of Eli. I watched a few things. And where I was sitting, I couldn't see a clock of any sort. So I'm knitting away. I'm changing. I watched several episodes of Grownish. I had a TV night and I was knitting away. And things were going well. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I can actually finish the 60 repeats tonight.
Y'all have to understand that Lisa kind of starts to fall apart after a certain hour. Like she stops making sense.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Oh, Lisa, stop it.
It's not that bad.
And yeah, she loses the ability to focus and she becomes quite unreasonable. If you try to tell her she's tired, forget about it. So
anyway, I started feeling hungry. I was like, oh, it must be around midnight. I stayed up too late. So I'm hungry again because we had gone running around yesterday and we had dinner like as soon as we got home. What time was that? Around 6-ish? So after dinner, I got on my grind. Well, when I messed up, what happened was my cells are off-white and the borders are off-white and the inside is white. And it was very late. So things got a little bit mixed up there because the colors were so similar and it was hard to keep my cells separated. And that's why I'm going to have to rip out a little bit of this section and get everything set up again. But when I put it down, because I realized, oh, I've messed up and I don't know how to fix this. I was like, you know what? It might be late. So I'm thinking it's around midnight, maybe 1 o'clock the latest. It was almost 3. And I was like, oh, snap. And I didn't realize it was like, I was like, okay, so I'm not going to try to rip this out now. I'm not going to do that. So I put it down and I was like, all right, let me just relax a little bit. So when I go in, I'll just fall right to sleep. Because, if I stay up too late, it becomes very difficult for me to fall asleep. So I might be up till 5. You know what? Crystal's going to tell you a myth in the family. It is not true. Do not believe a word she says.
The so-called myth is that when Lisa goes into her room to go to sleep, she just throws herself on the bed, and by the time she hits the bed, she's already sleeping. Like she fell asleep sometime during the falling.
And so that's not how it works. They don't think I ever have any trouble sleeping, and I do.
So if it takes her like 5 minutes to fall asleep, she has insomnia.
That is not true. That is a myth. And you know what? Let me know in the comments what myths there are in your family about you. Everybody's got them. That's not how that went. Anyway, so I was up kind of late last night. So I will be taking out this section today and just setting my cells up again so that everything is going to continue to fall in the right way. And I have actually very little knitting to do. So this is the width of the shawl now. When I started, this was the width of the shawl. Actually, I got the back. So you see, I've come a mighty long way.
Shit.
Oh, sorry.
Like when shawls attack.
But I can't wait for this to be done. I'm so excited. Like I said, I'm looking forward to wearing it. I'm seeing it as a jacket replacement for the spring because we've been having the kind of weather where it's actually lovely in the day. The morning might start out like 46, 50. You get up to 70 or so in the day, but as soon as the sun starts to set, it starts to get cold. So having something that's easy to just drape over you or take off will be perfect. So, Crystal, you had a little adventure.
What are we talking about?
Purple Fest.
Oh, like I had an adventure. Okay. Okay. So I more or less finished my vest, but I was like, you know what? I really didn't like my neckline. It was just a big old rectangle, and I don't know. I have to work on my neckline. I have trouble making them round, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it's just a big rectangle, and I was just like not feeling that at all. And Lisa has a book, 6,000 Plus Pullover Possibilities by Melissa Leapman, and I had been looking at that book previously because I'm trying to, it sets up sweater knitting as like a modular thing, so you can choose your neckline, choose what kind of neck you want to do, what kind of sleeves, how the body's going to fit, and you just pick all of those things and combine them any way you like to make a sweater. And I had an interest in one type of neckline, and I looked it up, and it's actually much easier to do than I thought. At least, reading about it made it seem much easier to do than I thought. And so I decided I would give it a try because I wanted to do a shawl collar. And according to 6,000 Plus Pullover Possibilities, you set your shawl collar into a rectangular neck opening. And I was like, well, I have a big rectangle I don't like. Maybe I'll try a shawl collar. And boom.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So ask her when that shawl collar occurred.
I think we've established at this point that I tend to work late. I am completely nocturnal. I'm just like, I've always, listen, let me tell you. So I'm a night owl, and when people say night owl, usually they mean like, oh, they'll stay up till like midnight or whatever. Me, I just function different, and I tend to have more of my energy at night. I'm very productive late at night. My family makes fun of me sometimes because I'll do the things at night everyone does in the day. I cook and eat. I'll do laundry. I'll work. When I was in school, I did homework. Whatever. I do stuff late at night. And apparently, I have been this way since I was an infant. And this is the story that my mother tells about one night I was in the crib crying, and it was really late. And she was crying, trying to get me to go to sleep. And she tells the story today like she still is a little mad about it. Like that one night that she couldn't get to sleep because I was crying. And apparently my grandmother took me and, let my parents get some sleep because I've been this way since I was a kid. So yes, the shawl collar happened after. So yes, from their perspective, they went to sleep. I had a square neckline.
Yes.
And they woke up.
And the next morning.
And I had a shawl collar.
Yeah. That's exactly what it looked like. Yes.
But, it was something I had been thinking about. I was like, how do I face this big square neck without ripping out my whole sweater vest? And I absolutely love it.
It looks really cute on. We're going to be taking pictures next week, so we'll have more pictures of this thing so you can see them on.
The trick is, though, you want to stitch your ends down first and then stitch around the neckline opening. I stitched down one end and then went around, and then you get to the other end, and a weird awkward thing was happening. There was just no way you were going to get the other end attached. So took that out, did it again, doing the ends first. And what I did was I did one end, because this collar itself is just a rectangle. Mm-hmm. So I stitched one end in the front loop and the other end in the back loop.
And that twisted them over each other.
And that's how I attached it. Mm-hmm. And I did a slip stitch seam. So I am entirely pleased with this. I think. Oh, I just love how it crosses over like that.
Oh, slide it over so they can see the cross. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And I just did all single crochet. You know, single crochet kind of gives you like these almost like hard rows. So I think it emulates ribbing without my actually having had to do ribbing. Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely in love with it.
And you know what? I always tell crocheters, you don't have to do ribbing. Crochet lies flat. So ribbing is a design choice, not a necessity like in knitting. Because if you're knitting stockinette, that bad boy is going to curl, and you're ribbing to counteract that curl.
I'm going to do my bottom edge over again, though, just the little purple on there, just because I did it with the same hook that I did the body with. But this yarn works up at a different gauge. This is the Cusco Cashmere. Mm-hmm. And so I just need to do my bottom edge over again with a larger hook.
Who's the Cusco Cashmere from?
Plymouth.
That's a Plymouth yarn.
And I've been saying that it's merino and silk. It turns out it's alpaca, silk, and cashmere. No nylon. And it's a wonder yarn.
It's a win, okay? It's a win for her.
It's a wonder yarn, and I absolutely love it. And you know, last week we talked about, you know, some people designating some yarns commercial yarns, but this is not a hand-dyed yarn, but I would consider it a luxury yarn. Oh, and one of the ways you can tell a luxury yarn is it comes in 25 gram ball.
Yeah. How many yards to 25 grams?
I don't know. I don't have a ball band on.
I'll take a look.
But it's an absolute dream to work with. I love the yarn, and it makes for a very comfortable collar. And I'm thrilled with my vest. It really needed the shawl collar. That was like, now that I've done it, it's just like that was the thing that was missing.
Yeah. It looks so complete.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just neat.
So again, it was just like a thing that popped into my head though, like, ooh, shawl collar, like, ooh, in Target. And I'm just like, this vest has just been, this is how I work. Like, just something pops into my head, and somehow this vest just became like a symbol for that.
Yeah.
So
it's 163 yards per ball.
Yeah, not a lot. Do they have new colors?
Yes. And we just got distracted. Dagnabbit.
I would love it in the red. I was just thinking this yarn would be so pretty in red, and I'm loving the pink.
Okay, I'll show you the colors.
They should do more.
You guys don't have to wonder.
Though. Like this, you know what? It's an expensive yarn, though. I guess.
Yeah. Also, you know, one of the things I noticed, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but have you noticed that your favorite yarn lines are doing less colors now? I noticed it yesterday when we were out. It's our niece's birthday, so this weekend. So we went shopping to get her some cute things for summer. And what I did notice, even in the stores we went to, is that there is just dramatically less color selection available. One store we went to, I think I saw 5 prevalent colors. I think it was 5. And that was it, basically. So I didn't see, the store didn't look empty at all, but it was just less selection, in my opinion. And I'm seeing the same thing in different yarn lines. A lot of yarns are going away, and there's less colors coming out. So instead of doing 10 colors or 12 colors, they might be doing 5 colors or 4 colors as a new color. And I'm not seeing a lot of the color of the year.
Oh,
running
What
around
is
loose.
this a yellow and gray?
No, that was last year's color of the year. This year's is like, I think it's like a blue and an orange or something.
I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to that. If I happen to like the color that's the color of the year, like, okay, great. It's a good coincidence, but I don't know why they choose it. What is it supposed to mean?
Well, a lot of products that are produced get produced in whatever the color of the year happens to be. So you'll see it in furnishings, you'll see it in fashion, you'll see it in household goods of all sorts.
I guess it's a thing.
And then when your eye is tuned to it, if you're seeing the color all over the place, you'll continue to buy that color. That's the thinking. You remember that scene in
Yes, Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, Devil Wears Prada. That's that situation. But yeah, loving what you did. And I think adding the collar just made one more occurrence of the Cusco cashmere. So it's kind of all integrated.
Yeah.
Throughout
I think
the
it's a little more balanced now.
Yeah.
Because now I have some at the top, some in the center with the intarsia, and then the bottom hem.
Very exciting. Very, very exciting.
I absolutely love it. I'm so happy with how this came out. I love the yarns that I used. I love the colors. I'm just, this is why I crochet.
Yeah.
This feeling right here. That's it right there. I love making things, and then getting to wear them. Oh my god!
And as luxury yarns go, it's not like insanely high priced. It's $20 a ball.
If you want to make a sweater and you got 163 yards,
yes,
it's gonna get pricey.
It's gonna be pricey, yes. But you can also do what you did and just use it in featured spots. Yeah. So you don't need as much of it. And that was one of our tips for saving money on buying yarn. Let's say you do want to use a yarn that you just kind of love the way this one loves anything blended with alpaca and cashmere and silk.
What's not to love?
Exactly. But how many balls of it would you say you used?
2.
So in the sweater vest, she's used 2. So that's $40 out of the yarn that, the money she spent for yarn.
I may have bought wholesale. We had a yarn store.
Yeah. But that's the way you want to think about it. And I was saying to her, you know what? The Queensland Rainbow Beach, it's not a scratchy yarn, but it's not
too bad.
It's not as soft as the Cusco's cashmere. So when you think about using something like that, make it strategic. The part that's around her neck is going to sit on the skin of her neck. So that's a soft, that's like some super soft, delicious stuff. So where you put it will also affect the wear of the garment. So if you think strategically, you can sneak in your luxury yarns. You just don't have to make the whole thing out of the luxury yarn. What you doing, girl? What who are you signaling to?
I'm just so happy. I'm just like, oh my god. The shawl collar was just the thing. You know, like when you just like find that perfect touch. And I've been wanting to do like a sweater with a shawl collar for a long time, and I hadn't because I thought it was gonna be like super hard. I had no idea how to do that structure.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be much simpler than I was making it in my head.
So if any of you are interested in kind of putting together your own sweater, Melissa Leapman's book would be a great place to start.
It's a big book. There's like a lot in there.
It's 6,000 sweater possibilities. I mean, good grief.
6,000 plus.
So, but everything is broken down into parts. So you can say, okay, I want a shawl collar. I want this kind of shoulder. I want a set-in sleeve. And all the parts are there for you. And you don't have to figure any of that out.
And she explains how to do each thing. Like she explains what kind of neckline shape you need to do the type of collar you want, or what kind of armhole shaping you need to do in order to do a certain type of sleeve. So it's a very useful book. But if I didn't know a knitter, I wouldn't have known about the existence of this book, because there's nothing comparable to this written for crocheters.
Yes, that's I've never seen it. I've never seen anything like that.
Knitters just have like really great resources for learning to design and really kind of explaining how certain garment styles work. And for some reason, we're just not getting that in crochet. And I don't know if it's like individual designers not wanting to write these kinds of books. I don't know if it's publishers thinking the audience isn't interested. I don't know.
Ding. I think it's the second one. I do. Because we're not seeing a lot of garments. But it's that snake eating itself again. We're not seeing a lot of garments being made because we're not teaching crocheters how to make garments, or that even you can make garments with crochet. If you just Google crochet, and don't take this the wrong way, you're going to see a lot of amigurumi and blankets. And if you are looking to learn, those are the things you're going to cut your teeth on if you're a crocheter. You will see the occasional scarf or shawl, but a full-on garment, unless you're from Latin America or Europe, you won't see like real garments that you'd wear anywhere. Yeah, that's a fact. But don't let the word knitting on the cover of a basic technique book for garment making, showing you how to make shapes, stop you from using that book. Because a square is a square, whether you crochet it or you knit it.
But you wouldn't necessarily know that, I don't think. Like,
No,
it would
that's
never
what I'm telling people.
have occurred to me to look in knitting books for,
No, it wouldn't occur to you. But that's why I'm telling people, because this is something we found out. And this is something that people need to know, that, yeah, you can follow those directions. Especially kind of generic directions that you'll find in a book like Melissa Leapman's, modular sweater book.
I'm surprised, though, that it speaks specifically to knitters, because she does also do crochet design. And I feel like she could have generalized it a little bit more. And
well, it depends. The way she works, if she gets contracted to write a particular book, that's the book she delivers. She would have been delivering 2 books in one had she generalized it.
I might need to do something, because I just think it's useful for crocheters to have more design knowledge.
Yep. Well, you know what? I think there's some crocheters following us now. So if you guys have found any books that speak to how do I put together a garment, can you share that with us in the comments? Because we'd like to know about it. Now that we're talking about books, shall we segue?
Yeah.
All right, hit it.
I got some books. So I had like a little period where I was buying like a lot of older crochet pattern books online, like from Amazon, used booksellers. But I recently bought some books from thrift books, which works out better because, when you buy from Amazon, it's $3.99 for shipping, just flat. This was free shipping over $15. So that just works out a little bit better. So, but I'm just going to tell y'all the truth. I'm going to tell y'all what happened. I was watching a video. By, I think her name is Rosina, and her channel is called Zines and Rogers. Oh. And she was just she did a 2-part video where she was just showing all of her crochet books. And I saw this one book and I was like, I have to have that book right now. And so I will show you that one first. And it's called Crochet Style. And it's by Sally Harding. And I think this is a British author. So I probably wouldn't have come across this book if I hadn't been watching, because Rosina's in the UK. I don't think I would have come across this book on my own if I hadn't been watching a UK podcaster who knows, designers and authors that I don't know. But this book is all like different color work techniques, and that's cute. Look at that. Check that out. But it is amazing. As soon as I saw it, I was just like, now this is from like the 80s, and you can tell. But you know what? I'm absolutely fine with that. But yeah, it's 80s. Look at that.
Yeah. Crystal Carrington wore that.
But I'm perfectly fine with that. I can, take the parts that I like and leave the rest. But it's just got some absolutely amazing color work in it. And right now, it's one thing to learn the techniques, but I haven't gotten to a place where I'm really like thinking in terms of color work and designing in terms of color work. I'm not even really aware of everything that's possible to do with different color work techniques. And so when I saw this book, I was like, that's exactly what I need. This is cool. The plaid part is actually knitted, and then the rest is crochet. I think that's fascinating. Not exactly crazy about the colors they chose, but the idea is just really cool. Oh, this is all just ways to do plaid in crochet. So this book is absolutely amazing, and I had no idea it existed. And I like what they did with. They just did these different length columns and let that edge
scroll it down a little bit. There you go.
And they just have that step edge at the bottom. And I think that's amazing. So thank you, Rosina. Because I wouldn't have known about this book. And then you know what happens though, right? You go on the website, you're like, I'm just going to get that one book.
Oh, and just be aware, if you get a book that's written for a UK audience, it will be probably crochet in UK terms.
Yeah, probably.
You'll have to look in the book to see what they tell you.
I probably won't be like following the patterns exactly. I'll just be looking at the designs and then coming up with my own version. But I just think they did some really fun things with color work. And I had to have it. I did. There was no not having it. I'm going to tell y'all at night, for some reason, my credit card decided to act up and the charge wouldn't go through. And so I was up really late trying to get that fixed. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just use Apple Pay. And then that Apple Pay didn't work. And it was a whole thing. And I went to bed thwarted. And then I had to get it finished the next morning. And you would think by the next morning, maybe the fever had cooled. No, it had spiked. And I was like, oh, I'm getting this book.
Like, no matter what.
I don't know. My credit card just suddenly acts up on certain websites.
Yeah.
And it's completely random. And then you call them and you're like, oh, no, there's no problem. What are you talking about? Thank you for the gaslighting. So I bought all used books, and some of the books are slightly better shaped than others. Sometimes I be wondering what people be doing with their books. I don't know how you get it into certain states, but that's okay. I also got some other books that I just saw while I was looking on the website. So I got this book, Everyday Crochet by Doris Chan. And this is actually a book I have been looking at for a while. And for whatever reason, I just didn't get it. And I think one of the reasons was because I couldn't see all of the patterns that were in the book. And that is always just a risk, because the pattern on the cover might be really nice, but you don't know what else is inside. But if I could get it for like a bargain price. I mean, Doris Chan is just a designer I trust. She's very knowledgeable. So I finally went ahead and bought a used copy. And then I got Crochet and Color by Kathy Merrick. And I think I actually have this as an ebook. Sometimes with design books and ebooks, things get cut off in weird ways.
Yeah.
And so I just went ahead. And this is the book that is the reason I wanted to learn Intarsia. And I will quickly see if I can find this little jacket pattern.
Oh, you should have marked
like
that
a page. Yeah, I saw that. I knew that was coming. You bum. Okay. But that coat right there.
Oh, that's cool. We were looking at that one.
Is why I wanted to learn Intarsia, because initially that's what I wanted to make. And I still might do something like this, but I wanted to start with a smaller Intarsia project. And I'm glad I did, because now I feel like I understand the technique a lot better. And we were just talking about Melissa Leapman. And this is another book that I keep looking at. This is called Crochet with Style. Let me see if I can find what year because these books are like, this is 2000. Not that
Yeah, it's
old.
only 22 years.
Anyway.
But Melissa Leapman has been at this for many moons, and I don't even know how many books she has in both crochet and knitting.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. It's a whole lot. But again, it's just kind of stuff that you don't necessarily see every day. Like,
and it's not all in worsted weight.
I like that. Which way am I going? Okay. Yeah, but that is a waffle stitch, and then she put the zipper in the neckline, and I think that's really cute. But I like the idea of the one that's on the cover. It's a little dated. It's still giving me 90s vibes, which is probably when the book was written. It was published in 2000. So it needs a little updating, but I think it's just a cute idea.
Mrs. Huxtable would have worn that.
And actually, I have 2 books that I'm still waiting for. But this is, again, like I am often online drooling over the crochet books. But like the one that I said that I have is an ebook that I went ahead and bought a paper copy. It was $4 and change. So I was just like, why not? This is the Learn to Crochet a Sweater book. And again, I'm really just looking for design ideas, not even specifically patterns. Just looking for different shapes that I can do and different ways. This book is not in color. Haram.
That's not a problem.
But different ways to combine color and things. So I just think it's really valuable to, like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Every single idea in the world can't spring from my brain. There are a lot of people who have already done really amazing things, and I can learn a lot from them just seeing what it is they're doing and how they create and combine different elements to make crochet garments. And that's what I wanted. So I still, even if I'm not following the patterns like row by row, I find it invaluable to maintain a library of patterns by other designers, just to see what's being done. This is the last one. It's called Great Crochet Sweaters in a Weekend. If the yarn is big enough, maybe, I guess. This is from 1993. Yes. Look at that. That is fascinating.
Matchy joy.
I know, right? The kids look thrilled. Look at their faces. They're like, okay, look at here, mother.
We have a middle sister who's in age between us, and we're both much older than Crystal. So my mom used to dress me and my other sister.
I've heard the stories. I've seen the pictures. But this has a lot of cute open work and like some filet crochet. It has a section called summer wear, so a lot of that is open weave. Oh, these are
this
cute.
one by?
Nola Thies and Chris Rankin. But I'm really, really excited about these books.
Yeah, I love that sweater on the cover. That's gorgeous.
I think it's really going to help inspire and inform my color work now that I'm, branching out and trying to learn different types of color work.
I'm so happy that you got your own color workbook, because somebody had some recriminations for me over my color workbooks.
She just has so much. You know what? We're going to talk about her library if she don't stop cutting up, because she has an extensive library of knitting books where it's books on specific techniques. It's books based on designs from, individual countries. So like she has a book on French knitting and a lot of Scandinavian countries. And was it Bavarian lace? Where was the lace book from? Latvia. He has Latvian lace.
No, that was Estonian.
Estonian, yes,
The
Estonian
Latvians
lace.
means-
So it's just it's plain simple, straight up jealousy. I'm not gonna lie. She just the wealth of information that's available to knitters that y'all don't always avail yourselves of. But it's just abundance. It's just so much. And so to reach this place where I'm just so like hungry to learn and really be limited in the resources that are available to me. Like there's a sweater book that just came out. It was called Modern Crochet Sweaters or something like that. And we went to a bookstore and I just looked through it. And it has some really cute designs. I think they're really great ideas for a beginner garment maker. So if you've never made a garment before, these were really simple shapes, but still cute, things you'd actually want to wear. But I felt like I'm kind of like a little bit past the level of that book. And I really want to see things that are, for me, I want to work on things that are a little more challenging and that look a little bit different from what I'm used to seeing.
I wish though that, like you said, there was the abundance of information for crocheters that there is for knitters, so that if you are a beginner who wants a first sweater pattern and you want to buy a book that has all the information you need, that book is there. But if you want to buy a book about, I don't know, a specific type of sweater,
like there is a technique called crochet brioche. There's some European designers who specialize in that, but none of them have written a book yet. But how many books could you find about brioche knitting? A bunch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I can think of a couple right offhand. Yeah,
which is why I'd be salty. But it's just, so I can find designs. I can find an abundance of designs. And I like to look at, I like the vintage books. I like the old books just to see designs that are different from what's popular right now. So I feel like it's just this well of ideas that are unique compared to, because, we all vibe off of what we see each day. So people are making things that are similar to what they're seeing around them. So now that this is like a bygone era, people aren't seeing these things every day. So these designs are, it's kind of an everything old is new again type of situation.
Yeah, and I feel like people were making more crocheted garments in the past than they are now.
I feel like that too, but I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like there's a certain style of crochet garments that's very trendy right now. Yeah. So like people are still doing a lot of things with granny squares, but trying to make, like more contemporary dresses and things like that using granny squares. That's cool. But I just feel like there's so many ideas out there.
I see less acrylic in the old books than you see now.
I don't know. I haven't really looked to see what kinds of yarns they were using.
I took a quick look.
But there isn't a lot in terms, so there's a lot of design books. There isn't necessarily a lot in terms of learning specific advanced techniques.
Right.
And that's what I want to do. So some of that is going to come from the knitting books. But like I said, I wouldn't have known that if I didn't know someone who had all the knitting books.
I don't have all of them, believe me. There's some I missed.
And like when we were going to use book sales, she could find a lot of knitting books.
You know what? It was hit or miss, because some book sales would have almost nothing except those little pattern pamphlets and magazines. But because I wasn't looking for anything else, I would find, seek and you shall find, as they say.
I wasn't finding any of this stuff that I just showed y'all at the used book sales.
No, but some of those things probably wouldn't have been even available here, like the British one. So maybe not.
It's just there's just so much more knowledge being offered to knitters than being offered to crocheters.
That is true. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But I'm just gonna do the digging and try to find the stuff that I'm looking for.
Well, you made a good start.
I think I have.
I think you did. You have your own color work section now.
I'm really excited about that one particular book.
a shelf became available in our craft space. So I took it over for my color work only books.
Yeah,
And when they discovered it, I got such recriminations. It was like, oh.
Because let me explain. I think I mentioned before we had one of the big IKEA shelves that used to be called Expedit, but now it's called Calyx.
Oh.
And she had like pretty much like 2 whole rows of books, of knitting books, compared to our like one little row of crochet books.
Really?
But she still needed more space. So there were other kinds of, like, there's some sewing books, she has some gardening books or whatever. There are other things that were on that big main shelf. So she snuck some books onto another shelf that's in the room because she has so many.
Anyway, moving on.
She the one that brought up the extra stuff. So now I'm just providing context.
I'm just saying now you have your own color work section.
I have one book, not a section.
It's a start. I started with one book.
Okay, just, yeah.
Okay, it's a start. You gotta start somewhere. Anyway, so I've been working on my blanket.
Yeah. Not at all abrupt subject change.
Not at all. She's getting bigger. And there's more colors. Let me see. I want to pull the right needle out so I don't lose my row. Okay, there we go.
You don't put anything on the needle or anything to...
For what?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
have this terror of knitting falling apart.
Yeah, I don't know why, but she believes
it's the open stitches. They freak me out.
The yarn is just waiting to like abandon ship.
That's the same thing with Tunisian. My mom's really good at Tunisian, but
I'm so happy with this. I could cry. Okay. Because you know what? I've had this yarn in my stash for eons and I didn't have a plan for it. But when I would find wool somewhere in the big box stores, I would snap it up. And sometimes I felt I was the only one buying it. So I have wools and wool blends up in here. And I'm starting to see more springtime temperatures occurring. As you can see, for a while there, it was nothing but the whites and the navy blue and maybe the purples. And the light blue is anytime it got below 30 degrees. And as a person who's never had a woolen blanket, it weighs next to nothing. And I love that. But even when I sit it on me here, I want to cozy up under it. And you cannot call it a napkin anymore. It's definitely
a placemat now.
It's bigger than a placemat. Thank you very much. But even when I have fallen, and I'm going to tell you the truth, I have fallen behind a couple of times. But my rows are so short that it is possible to catch up. And it's not like, I don't feel like daunted by it. Like, oh, Christ. I have 200 stitch rows to do. None of that's happening. So if you're interested in temperature blankets at all, you can start them at any point during the year. You can make it from one birthday to the next birthday. Pick whatever dates you like. It's really just kind of a fun thing. And I gathered together a bunch of temperature blanket patterns that don't require long rows. Well, blankets that don't require knitting long rows to make a blanket that you can use as a temperature blanket that I thought would be fun for both knitters and crocheters. So do check it out. Got a blog post. Anyway, that is my update on the blanket. It is going swimmingly, and I love it. I can't wait to start using even warmer and warmer colors. And see, I'm just going to fold it. And stick, what I do make sure to do is stick my other needle in there because I've lost one needle before. Oh. It's not fun. Chris will start a new project.
Why do you say it like you're telling on me?
Because I am.
Well, I had thought I'd finished the sweater vest. So, I go from one project to the next, and then I accidentally jump back to the sweater vest. But now it's really almost done. So let me tell you what happened. Remember I said I was going to start something with crochet thread, and I was trying to figure out an idea what I could do with the crochet thread. And I was watching a YouTube video, and this woman was looking at a dress, and I was like, oh wait, I could do something similar to that. But when I thought about how I wanted it to drape, I was like, ooh, I have this silk yarn that I think would be better. However, I have six skeins of the silk, 6 different colors. So the original idea I had, I couldn't do. So I think I still will do that with some crochet thread at some point. But I had to adapt my idea to the yarn that I have, because it turns out this beautiful, wonderful, amazing yarn has seemingly been discontinued because even the manufacturer only has one color left.
Yeah. So let me tell you about this yarn. It is absolutely beautiful. It was Ella Ray Rustic Silk. Ella Ray Rustic Silk. Such a beautiful yarn. All in soft, subtle colors. It had solids and a multi. And multis. Not a multi, and multis. But everything, all the colors were like these soft, watercolored washes that just were brilliant. And the stuff is absolutely wonderful.
So what I'm doing, I'm just going to make a very simple sheath dress because I didn't want to do anything that would get wider and need more yarn, because this is the last of it. It's 100% silk, but it is a raw silk. So it doesn't have that slippery, satiny feel, but it still does feel really, really good. And this is, I'm working from the bottom up, and I'm just striping my 6 colors. And I wanted to figure out a way to, like, I wanted random stripes, but random actually takes a lot of thought, because it was, I wasn't just gonna like grab the next color. So I ended up coming up with like a faux random, because I have, well, I'm gonna use the 6th color just like at the top edge. So I'm striping 5 colors, and I'm doing 3 different stripe widths. So it's gonna be like 12 row stripes, 8 row stripes, and 4 row stripes. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the stripes large, medium, small. That's what I'm calling them. Large, medium, small, large, medium, small, large, medium, small, in order. And then I'm using my 5 colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in order. So sometimes a large stripe will be color 2. Right. Sometimes a large stripe will be color 4. And so it'll look like it's random, but it's really just the interplay of 2 different patterns. And that makes it really, really easy. I don't need a chart, is the important thing. So as you can see, so like I have a wide stripe here, that's one color, but then down here, all the way at the bottom, that wide stripe is a different color. And so all the colors just playing out different ways, but they all, I chose colors that coordinate this well, because I was originally going to do a fade shawl, because there's a pattern called Crochet or Fade that is meant to look like the Andrea Mary pattern. Right. And I started it, and for whatever reason, I just kind of wasn't feeling it. And this yarn has just been sitting ever since. And I'm so happy that I came up with a way to use it, because it's a beautiful yarn. And I really didn't want it to like not become a garment. Right. But I think, I don't know, somehow this all over multicolor effect that they're doing, somehow it makes all of the yarns work together.
Yeah, it didn't matter what colors you chose. They would have all worked together.
But I love it. I think it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be very simple, but I think it's just going to have, and that's how I like to work. I like to do something that's really simple, but just gives a nice effect.
The fabric feels great.
Yeah. It's got really nice drape. It's just, I think it's going to be very comfortable to wear. I was looking at my crochet thread because I wanted to start making lighter weight spring summer garments. And so this is going to be perfect. And I'm very happy. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's, I'm using it's fingering weight, and I'm using a 3.25 millimeter hook, but I'm only doing single crochet. It goes fairly quickly, except I have to keep changing colors. So I learned how to do a magic knot. Between Lisa and a video I watched, I figured out how to do a magic knot, and that way, if you notice, from this point on, when I started doing the magic knot, I have no ends. So I think that's the thing to do, because I was trying to figure out, I was like, what am I going to do about all these ends if I'm striping 5 colors? And just thinking about it made me want to cry. So the magic knot is working out for me. I'm still a little scared. I don't know that I trust the magic knot. I have to be perfectly honest. I'm still a little scared that my dress is
Yeah, it's not going to do that.
But I'm going to go with it anyway, because I don't want to weave in ends.
And you don't see any evidence of the knot.
Like I can feel them more than I can see them.
Yeah.
But
you
they're
have to feel
at
for
the
them.
very end that's going to be seamed.
Yeah, so
it's not an issue. But
that's exciting. So
I love these colors.
Yarn shopper's tip. There's probably going to be a little LRA rustic silk going on sale places.
You know what? When I was looking,
if anybody has it, really?
It was
There's
not
none?
discounted.
No way.
It was not. If people were still selling it at full price, I was like, oh, word.
Well, look around, keep an eye out. You'll probably see the price coming down on it.
Because I am trying to do a very low buy. I'm trying to change my shopping habits, and I'm trying to do very low buy. So we went out yesterday and we went to American Eagle Outfitter, and I saw some things that I thought would look really cute on me. I'll just say it. But I'm trying not to buy fast fashion or whatever we're calling it. I'm trying to add to my wardrobe by making.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't want to replace my habit of buying clothes with buying a lot of yarn or buying a lot of fabric to sew. Right. So I'm trying to think of other ways to acquire clothes, and making things is also just slowing down the pace at which I will be acquiring new things. And I was thinking about, I say all of that to say, I was thinking about buying some of this yarn when I found out I couldn't get it from the manufacturer. I was looking at different stores that still had some left so that I could do my original dress idea, which was just 3 colors and a color block. But I didn't, because I didn't have enough of any one color, I couldn't do that with what I already had. And no, the prices were not marked down at all. One person was selling it for $30, and I was like, that's the big markup. So
keep an eye out.
Caveat emptor.
Yeah. Keep an eye
out. Maybe you could find some at a lower price, but so far that's not what I was seeing. And I was really surprised. But I'm really glad that I just changed my idea, though, instead of buying more yarn. So far this year, I've only bought that one ball of yarn that I needed to finish my sweater, to finish my cardigan, and I have not bought any yarn this year, and we're already almost at the end of March.
Yeah.
So that's the first quarter.
Yeah.
I got through the first quarter without buying any clothes, one ball of yarn. Yesterday I broke and I bought a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
They're really cute and I have no regrets.
And she's not planning to learn how to make shoes, so there you go.
Yes, I won't be cobbling. And the only books I bought were my used crochet books. Those are my 4 big categories of things that I would buy a lot of.
Yeah.
It was yarn, books, shoes, and clothes. And so I've been doing really good.
To be perfectly honest, you couldn't get these books new. Probably not.
Maybe as ebooks, some of them.
Maybe.
But so what I have been buying, there's no such thing as used yarn, I don't think.
No.
I've seen videos where people get yarn in thrift stores.
Yeah. Well, people de-stash. You'd have to look on Ravelry in the de-stash. Yeah.
But you don't always know what the material is, and I can't do that. I have to know what's in it. We did go shopping yesterday. We went to a thrift store, and I got some things that I plan to use just the fabric from them for my sewing projects. And I will be talking more about that in the future. But I'm also really excited about that because I wanted to go to this thrift store that I'd heard about, Second Avenue Thrift, to really see if thrifting to sew is viable. Because like I said, I don't want to replace my clothes buying habit with a fabric buying habit.
Mm-hmm.
And we really barely scratched the surface at that store, but I think it was a success. And I think I really will be able to source a lot of useful fabric from the thrift store. And that's what I plan to, because the idea of thrifting to just buy a thing and wear it does not appeal to me. But to be able to take something and recreate something that I want. So it wasn't just something that someone else had and didn't want anymore. To be able to take that fabric and make something that very specifically is what I want to make and what I want to wear. That appeals to me very, very much.
And you will actually be replacing your fast fashion garments with absolutely unique pieces, you know, that you've given a second life to. And I was telling Crystal yesterday that, hey, these clothes have already proved themselves. They're still here from whenever they started.
So I will be talking more about that in future videos. Right now, I have this bag of clothes and I'm ripping out all the seams. I've got zippers, I've got hook and eyes. Like there's all kinds of supplies now in
that came
those clothes.
In the price of the fabric.
So I'm really excited about that. And right now, so I'm finishing. Well, I'm still working on the top that matches the skirt I made, and I will show you guys when I finish the whole outfit. I'll put it on and you'll see a picture. Because I know you can't. The skirt really needs like a body in it to shape it, so you can't really see. But I can't wait to dive into the stuff I just bought and make from it. And I already have, my $1 patterns.
Yep.
So this is going to be very economical making. And eventually I'm hoping I'll get faster at sewing so that I can produce a little bit more, because right now it's taking me forever to make a thing.
Make no warranties about that.
But like right now I have to like ask every step, okay, what do I do next? Hopefully I'll learn enough to like not have to do that, and that will save me some time.
Absolutely. Eventually you get to the point where you're batching things. You do all your cutting on one day or whatever.
But I'm very excited about like my maker future.
I do have some shop announcements. I have mystery bags going. Now, every time I do a mystery bag, right? I don't know why, but I do 3 sizes. So I did a 200-gram size, which is $40, a 600-gram size, which is $60, and
is it 800?
Something. It's big. It's a lot. I did fun size venti. I have fun size, grande, and venti. The venti is the biggest one. I think it's 800 grams. It might be something like that. I forget. I should have written that down. And that is $80. And so far, everybody wants the venti. So there are still some venti bags left. But if you would like a venti bag, it is time to order a venti bag, because everybody's ordering venti bags. So far, I'm getting good feedback. People are liking their surprise, and it's a lot of fun. You literally order yourself a surprise, and when you open it up, you're like, "Ooh!" Very happy with that. Also, I have scheduled a new class. It's called How to Work a Pattern. I have had people asking me, "Oh, well, they're really saying I can't work from patterns. They're confusing. They're this, they're that." What you need is an approach. How do I set myself up with this pattern so that I understand what the pattern is telling me? And I have a way to work that I can just get through one step at a time and create the thing I want to create. So the dates I'm going to put down in the description bar. If I try to pluck it out of the air now, I will be telling you complete nonsense. The class is a virtual class, so it doesn't matter where you are. You can zoom on in. And what I'm trying to do is I have the class scheduled for a certain amount of time, but if we finish early, if you have a pattern that has stumped you or stymied you, bring it with you, and we'll talk about it, and we'll practice on that practice our process on that pattern. The class is $35, and the link will be below in the description bar. So, Crystal. Now, I think we told you guys last week that we were planning to attend this thing called
Classism.
Classism in fiber. It was a virtual event hosted by three knitwear designers really, but Shannon Oakley of Cooperative Press, Willie Wormhead, and I forget, sorry, the third designer's name. And when I heard that title, I envisioned something other than what we actually got. What we actually got was a conversation among fiber professionals about being underpaid and their work being undervalued by both the business side of things and the interactions with customer side of things. And that really wasn't the conversation I was expecting. I was expecting more of a conversation about the customer side of things, the barriers to entry to getting into fiber as a hobby, as a thing to do. Materials are expensive, classes are expensive, I have a lot of books, but books are expensive. you know yeah Sorry, that was my phone. It'll be all right. Fell on the carpet. Yay. All that stuff costs money. Patterns are expensive and cheap at the same time. It's weird. And if you are in yarn store culture, you have all kinds of other barriers. You have the sexism, the racism, the homophobia, all of it. There's literal barriers to entry. And your basic classism, where, if you're not knitting with the right yarn, you may not belong here. Or if you can't afford the new it yarn, you may not belong here. And that was really the conversation I thought we were having. And maybe we would have a conversation about ways to alleviate all of that. There was none of that. Well, there's very little of that. Basically, they were talking about.
They're mad about free patterns.
Yeah, that was the bottom line. They were mad about free patterns. And I'm like, but all patterns aren't free. All patterns aren't created equal. So,
one thing they mentioned specifically was yarn companies offering free patterns to sell yarn, and so that's not something they can do because they're not selling yarn. They're just selling their patterns and having to compete against the yarn companies and the money they're able to put into designing and marketing their patterns. Yeah, that's a thing that's happening, and you're going to have to make decisions about how you compete in that market. I think a lot of them feel pressured to offer free patterns, and I'm not completely unsympathetic to that, but you have to make a decision. Either you will offer free patterns or you won't. And that will make a difference for some customers. Some will decide they'll only use free patterns, and some will pay you for your pattern. And you have to find your customer who values your work. The idea that free patterns are going anywhere is nonsense.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. And their notion of classism was, well, a lot of the designers who give away their patterns or underprice their patterns, this is not what they do for a living. They are in an upper class wherein, for whatever reason, they don't have to live on the money they're making off designing patterns or even writing books, because if you're writing craft books,
they don't make a lot of money.
You're not making a living doing that.
And less so now.
Yes. So what struck me, what their solutions, and there is a hashtag on Twitter called Yarn is for Everyone. And it's hashtag Yarn is for Everyone. And that's where the discussion has continued with these designers. And one of them came up with some solutions today that I thought were a little nonsensical, because the bottom line is they want to stymie competition from free, because it's hard to compete with free, especially now that once upon a time the fiber world was so closed, so hermetically sealed. If you want to get into selling fiber, you pretty much have to have a brick and mortar store, or some companies simply will not sell you any fiber.
And even if you have a brick and mortar store, some companies, if they're doing business with another yarn store in your area, however they choose to define that, they won't sell to your store. So basically, it's older stores. The longer you've been in business, the more
variety
some companies
you get to have.
will. Yeah.
So they've depended on exclusivity a long time as their selling point. And now designers can't rely on exclusivity. Once before the internet, you either had patterns in a book, or you went to a yarn store and got your patterns, or maybe you went to Woolworths or a big box store, and you had that limited selection of patterns they had. Some yarn stores were writing patterns for individual customers, one at a time. I'll never forget, we had some woman walk in one day, and what did she call it? Was it Delilah?
I've been saying Delilah because I can't remember the name she said.
She walked in and said, "Do you know Delilah?"
And I'm thinking to myself, "Who's Delilah?
Who's Delilah?" And I'm like, and I said, "Who's Delilah?" And she was like, "Oh, well, Marie, this lady who owned another yarn store way back in the day."
Was Marie.
Yeah, I think Marie was black. So, or they would ask, "Do you know Marie?" And I'm like, "No, who's Marie?" But she said, do you know Delilah? And it took me a few minutes to understand from her that it was a stitch pattern that
the yarn store owner had just created for her.
Yeah, she either created it or, shared it with her and gave it a name so they could talk about it together. So that was the sort of thing that was happening. I remember patterns appearing in like maybe the newspaper, and people would photocopy them and maybe share them that way. But patterns were difficult to get. And if you weren't directly connected to Yarn World somehow, it was hard for you to get patterns unless you bought books on your own. That's no longer the case. So you can't use exclusivity as the way you sell patterns. You're going to have to do something else. And there's a lot of different models. Like there's Tin Can Knits. They have a model where they did a collection years ago of free patterns. And that's mostly their free patterns. But if you wanted to learn how to knit, there are tutorials that go with those patterns. There are, beautifully laid out little workbooks you can work with those patterns with. And you could really learn how to make a basic sweater, pullover and cardigan, a basic hat, mittens, gloves.
And they do like all the sizes.
Yeah, and they literally do sizes from the baby,
from infants,
to a 5X adult. And that's their free pattern offering. So that's how they dealt with that. And you can learn so much from those patterns. The rest of the patterns you have to pay for. So that's one model for doing that. What Woolly Wormhead does is her Patreon support her free patterns. So look, I am not going to say that creating a design is easy and then writing it up. Crystal makes her own designs, but she doesn't even try to write them up. She doesn't want to get into all of that. So she makes designs for herself right now. So it's hours of work, and it's different kinds of work. It's writing, it's photography, it's grading, it's this, it's that, it's the other. I get it. And I don't think every single pattern on earth should be free. I don't think that at all. But as a business person, you need to figure out how to sell your product rather than all of their solutions that they came to in that discussion was, we need to shut down free pattern, and there needs to be gatekeeping on who can be a designer. That's not just the gatekeeping now is, can you afford to be a designer? And that is an issue in and of itself right now for them. So I don't know how they intend to resolve that, because all their solutions are basically saying, don't compete with us. And they did have some valid points about unpaid labor in fiber, because one woman was telling us that her job was actually to merchandise product in yarn stores, but she was fully expected to make samples for no additional compensation. She was fully expected to participate in doing nationwide promotions. But her job was actually merchandiser. But she was also expected to do all this unpaid labor. And if she didn't do the unpaid labor, she could have lost her job. So there are issues that, need to be dealt with, but figuring out how to compete with the large yarn companies was not really on their agenda, except to say to them, stop giving away patterns. Stop favoring tangible goods over intangible goods. That's how they put it.
I'm not understanding why a pattern is considered an intangible good.
Because it's a download. It used to be something that they sold on paper.
Right, but it's
a download. It's a digital product. Especially
it's a set of instructions, and
right.
You're probably not gonna make that sweater without.
Well, that's how she phrased it.
Yeah, I don't think it's an intangible, personally.
It's intellectual property rather than a physical item.
You need to read the words.
Yeah.
You need either a paper or a device that will allow you to read every word that someone wrote.
The distinction they're making, though, is PDF as opposed to paper. They see them as different products. And that's the other thing. Patterns used to be a printed. Like, we never really carried paper patterns. So I never saw the point. But there are some yarn stores that you can go and there's a little section and you can page through drawers of paper patterns, and you can pay $6, $8, $10 each for them. And I never saw the point of doing that, because we had the entire, at the time when we started, Ravelry system at our disposal for just about any pattern you can think of, and it was easy to retrieve patterns out of it. So I don't know. I just think that their approach is kind of misguided, although I do think they do have some valid points about how compensation is handled in the fiber industry.
But that was also someone who was working for someone else. Now that they're, working for themselves, getting paid for patterns is their compensation, and you have to be willing to charge the amount you believe your work is worth, regardless of what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that someone giving away a pattern that they decided to give away, I don't think that that is impacting you as much as you think it is. Because it's not that the person is choosing between your pattern and that free pattern. The person who's looking for a free pattern is looking for a free pattern. They're not even considering your pattern.
Thought of I know in crochet blogs, what a lot of people do is they offer their pattern for free with a lot of ads, and then they say, well, you can buy an ad-free version, so you can get a digital download of the pattern without the ads. Mm-hmm. Has anyone thought of Woolly Worm says her patterns are sponsored by her Patreon? Had she reached out to the yarn companies or anyone else that she works with to actually have her pattern sponsored, so that she gets paid by someone else for having designed that pattern?
You know what
she did? Then you can print that on the pattern. Oh, this pattern was sponsored by so-and-so, and give them a little publicity in your pattern. And I feel like that's maybe another approach or another model. It's probably going to work out better for some of the bigger name designers. Maybe. So I think a Woolly Wormhead could do that. But she's got to start thinking about other ways to bring in revenue from the patterns, whether she's going to post them on her website and have ads in them, or she's going to ask for sponsorship from certain yarn brands or whatever, if she uses the yarn for patterns or something. It's time to get creative.
Yeah. It's I was looking at Coco Knit's website, and all of her patterns are $10, period, the end. If you want a cocoa knits pattern, you must either pay the $10 or buy the book, because she also has a cocoa knits design workshop book. And that's it. You state what the thing costs, and people who want to pay you for it pay you for it if they want that thing. And I think putting the onus on, I don't know who is the gatekeeper of all of this. I think they sort of appointed themselves gatekeeper for a moment and saying, you know, you designers who are giving away patterns, bad you, don't give away patterns. And she had a series of strategies to avoid giving away patterns. But if it's your intellectual property, just like I can't tell her what to price her pattern at, she shouldn't tell anyone else what to price their pattern at, because it's not a race to the bottom. Because personally, I think Woolly Wormhead designs completely unique hats. And if you want a Woolly Worm, I've never emailed Woolly Wormhead and say, hey, can you knock $5 off this pattern for me? And I have bought, you know.
I bet you she has gotten those emails.
I bet she has.
It turns out people are saying just any old thing to designers.
I've gotten emails like that.
Yeah, so
I've gotten emails like that. I just looked at one the other day. I was like, oh, I forgot about this person.
But
it's like, no.
You have to charge what you believe your work is worth. And don't expect the marketplace to
shield you.
Yes, to protect you. Yeah.
Because it doesn't protect any of us.
You have to figure out a way to cut through the noise. And the fact that you have to figure out a way to cut through the noise doesn't mean necessarily that you are being put upon. Which was kind of the vibe that I got from the whole thing. Like this is a thing that's happening to us and it's unfair. But I'm like, this is, you know, and some of them even spoke about like just the privilege of being able to make your living doing this thing that you want to do. You have these choices that you have to make. And if this is what you want to do, you have to take everything that comes with it, the bad with the good. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not always going to be fun. And people are not always going to treat you with respect, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But charge what you believe your work is worth.
And not even that. Charge what you need to charge to actually continue doing the work. Because there is a point where you cannot continue doing the work if you're not getting money to maintain the work. Because Woolly Wormhead has quite the extensive website. Maintaining a website costs money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she has a .Woolly Wormhead email address that costs money. The time it takes to devise the pattern, test the pattern, write the pattern, all of that.
Hire the tech editor, hire the photographer.
Yeah, I am not saying by any means that, you know, well, you just have to eat those costs, because there comes a point where you cannot, because, you know, you'd like to eat a piece of chicken perhaps.
And I feel like if everyone who wanted to charge higher prices did, that would be the going rate for patterns. But people are allowing themselves to feel pressured to keep their prices low because there are free patterns on the market. And you know what? The free patterns will be what they are and whatever quality they are. Mm-hmm. And these paid patterns will be what they are. And people will choose.
Right.
And you have to accept that. So if you want to charge more for your work,
do it. Yeah. Charge a reasonable rate.
Do it.
That allows you to continue doing. You know, I have a friend who owns a small little snack shop, right? And he was talking to me because he had to raise his prices for the first time since he opened. And he was really concerned. He was like, I don't know. Are people going to be upset? And I was like, look, your real customers want you to keep serving your snacks. So they're going to pay what it costs. It was, I mean, you know, during the pandemic, it was harder to get even like the basics for serving food. It was hard for him to get. So I was like, your real customers want you to be here. They're the ones that come every day, or it's their Friday treat and you see them every single week or every couple of days. They want you to be here, and they're going to pay what you're asking because they see what things cost. The gas it takes to go get the food is more expensive. And that's really the bottom line. And I think that is the answer for designers. Your real customers, the people who like your work, because I've been intrigued by Woolly Warhead patterns for a decade now. They're like, oh,
that hat you made with the mohair was one of hers, right? Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, and interesting to knit. But she said the pattern was, I don't even remember what the pattern cost. Let's say the pattern cost $9. She said the pattern was $9. I shelled out the $9 and got my pattern because that was what I wanted. And I appreciate the people who do free patterns. I even appreciate the people who say, please don't email me. This was a free pattern. I appreciate that. They're like, look, or the people that say this pattern has not been tech edited. It was a free pattern, because you know why? Tech editing is a skill and it costs money. So if you want the pattern for free, you're going to be the tech editor. And I think that's completely fair. Or even the people that say, oh, well, I just wrote down what I did. I don't know anything. Don't email me. I totally get that, and I respect it. But if those are the only patterns you could use because right now money is tight, I'm not mad at you either.
Everyone's just going to have to do what works for them.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to kind of develop a thick skin about the people who complain about your prices, because some people will just complain about your prices.
Yeah.
Because if it works, if you complain and someone knocks something off the pattern or gives them a free pattern, hey, you got a free pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So, you were the squeaky wheel. You have to accept that some people, that's just their mindset.
Right. And they're not your customer.
That's not your customer. That is not your customer. So you can't worry about that person.
Or her friends. Because she's not your customer.
So charge what you charge.
Yeah.
End of.
Speaking of end of, are we done? I think so. We had a long one today. If you stay to the end, thank you so much.
Our mother would be very happy if you liked and subscribed, and feel free to leave a comment.
Yes, please do. And if you have any questions about pattern prices, or you have a pattern price story, I'd love to hear it, because patterns are tough to write. And if you find a great one, that person really worked on it and they need to get paid because you want their next pattern. Anyway, please like and subscribe. See you guys next week.
Stay stitching.
I'm not allowed to say that, but I'm going to do this.
Siblings.